Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start our project. So we're going to go to scratch.mit.edu and we're going to create something new. Now the first thing that this project has is it has two buttons, and the buttons will do things. One button is going to make these little balls that make squares, that draw squares. The other button will clear the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and create the two buttons. So first I'm going to select a sprite for my buttons. And my first button, I'll just use the built-in button thing. Here's a button. So I'm going to use this one. Okay. And I'm going to drag the button down to here. Notice that when I drag it down, that this position thing right here, this go to, changes. So if I drag it to here, these go to numbers change. If I drag it here, these go to numbers change. I'm also going to make it a little bit smaller, so I'm going to change its size from 100% to 50%. And actually might be a little bit too small, so 60%, let's say. Okay, now I'm going to drag it exactly where I want it, which is right here. And I want to call this button more, because it's going to make more of my balls that draw squares. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the button itself. Then I'm going to click on its costume. And I'm going to see that, first off, the costume has two different colors. But it also doesn't say anything. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the text button here. And this will be the color of the text. I don't want it to be purple. I want it to be kind of a whitish color. So I'm going to change the saturation here. This will make it white. And I'm going to go ahead and now click here, and I'm going to type more. I don't like how it's not centered on the button. So what I did just there is I clicked here, and I can see this little blue line around it. I'm going to drag the more and put it right into the center. So now I've gone ahead and created a more button. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my code here, and I've got a button here, and it's button 2. It probably makes sense to give it a different name, so I'm going to call it more button. Now I'm going to hit the control button and click on this at the same time. So I held down the control button and clicked on this item at the same time, and now I can duplicate it. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the button, and now I have two more buttons. I'm going to drag this more button to where I want it, the second more button. But I don't want this second button to say more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at its costume, and instead of it saying more, I want it to say clear. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the word more. I'm going to double click on it so that all the letters are highlighted, and I'm going to change it to clear. So now I've got a clear button and a more button, but I better change the name from more button 2 to clear button to keep it straight. And notice that I dragged these buttons where I want them to be. Now if I run this program, I just hit run, and there's no code obviously, but if I hit run and I drag these things around, then they're going to move. I don't want them to move. I want them to always be where they are. So the clear button is, I'm on the clear button here. You can see that it is at go to these numbers. So this is where it's at. So one thing I'll do is I'll just freeze it there. So I'm going to make sure it doesn't move at all. So I'm going to say when the green flag is clicked, forever go to this location. So now it's frozen in this position. So let's see what happens. If I take the clear button and I try to move it, it snaps back. The more button can still move around. So I better freeze the more button in its position as well. So the more button is, if I go to motion, I can see that the more button is at this location, and the clear button is at, oh, that's interesting. The more button, 197, 196, and then the more button is at 197, 126. Well, let's see what happens. I know what's going to happen, but we're going to have to make a change. So we'll go control, and we'll try to freeze it in a position too. So we're going to go control, and then forever, motion, and we'll take its position, and then we'll hit go. Oh, and one of them disappeared. Well, it's not that it really disappeared. It's just that one covered the other one. So they're both there. It's just that one is on top of the other one. So my problem is that I have the same number here, 197, negative 126, for both buttons. So this is 0, 0. The cat is literally at 0, 0. He's in the center position. This is a negative y. Y is going down here, so this is like negative, I don't know, 180 or something. This is positive 180 in the y. Here is x. This is negative, I think it's around 220, and this is positive 220. But regardless, what I need to do is I need to take my more button, or my clear button, one of the two, and change these numbers. So I'm just going to go ahead and arbitrarily change these numbers. Go to, instead of negative 126, I'm going to say negative 100. Not quite what I want. Oh, I think I want it more than 126, so I'm going to say negative 145. Not quite down enough. Negative 155. Oops. Negative 155. Close. Negative 165. Too far. Negative 162. Oh, that looks good. Okay, so now I run my program and I've got two buttons that don't do anything, but they do move back to where they were before. So if I try to drag them somewhere, they move back. I don't need this cat, by the way. He's driving me nuts. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the garbage can, get rid of the cat. Now, a second ago, we were talking about user interface design. Look what happens if I click on these guys. Nothing. I really want there to be some feedback for the user that, in fact, I am over the more button when I'm over the more button and over the clear button when I'm over the clear button. So I really want it to kind of gray out or look like I'm on top of it. So let's see how I might do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to here, grab this thing, and I'm going to make another forever loop because I always want to check this. And I'm going to say forever if touching mouse pointer. So if the mouse pointer is on top of this object, I want it to do something. So I'm going to go to sensing. If touching mouse pointer, then I can use something called ghost effect. Ghost effect makes things a little bit see-through. So I'm going to set ghost effect to, I don't know, 30. So if it's touching the mouse pointer, set ghost effect to 30. Otherwise, set ghost effect to 0. In other words, reset it to nothing. So let's just see what happens here. So remember, I'm on the more button. Oh, look at that. See how it faded out? That's called good user interface design. But the clear button doesn't do it because this code is not on the clear button. But I'm going to go ahead and take this code and drop it on the clear button. So if I do this, if I make it to the hands there, grab it, and then just drop it, see how that thing jiggled? It's telling me where it's going. Okay. Now if I go to the clear button, it also has the same code, right? So now when I hit run, the clear button also fades out. Pretty good user interface design. But there's one more thing that you really want to do as a user interface designer. I want something to happen when I click on it. So I don't want it just to gray out. I kind of want it to blink when I click on it. Just like when I clicked on one of these things and I selected this, it blinked, right? So I want it to blink. So I'm going to go ahead and make it blink. I'm also going to make this whole screen a little bit smaller so I can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. I did that, by the way, by hitting Command and minus at the same time. So Command and minus makes everything smaller. Command and plus makes everything bigger. So Command minus. So now I'm going to see what's going on here. I want to make this bad boy, the more button, click or blink when I click him. So I'm going to basically create another one of these. So I'm going to hit Control and duplicate this entire block of code. But now I want it to do something different. So it's not just touching mouse pointer. I want it to do, actually, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this. I made a mistake. So instead, I'm going to say when I'm clicked. When this item is clicked, I want to do something. So I'm going to go to events, maybe? Yeah. When this sprite is clicked, I'm going to repeat 3 times. And what I'll do is I'll set ghost effect to 100, which will make it disappear, and then I'll set ghost effect back to 0. So that actually will make it blink. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. I'm going to go to looks, set ghost effect to 100, That'll make it disappear. And then set ghost effect to 0. So let's go ahead and try it. So here I am on my more button. I click it. Kind of blinks, but it's not, you know what's happening is this is happening too fast. It's doing it 3 times, but it's going 100, 0, 100, 0, 100, 0. I need to put in a little delay here. So I'm going to put in a delay of, let's say, 1/10 of a second. Now let me try it. And, okay, cool. It's a little bit longer than I want. So I want to say, how about 0.5? See what that looks like. Yeah, that's better. And if I only wanted it to blink twice, I could change this to 2. Let's just get it the way I really want it. Yeah, I think I like it with 2. Okay, so I like this code. So this code now allows more to blink when I click on it. The clear button doesn't do that, but if I drag this to the clear button, now if I hit run, the clear button blinks and the more button blinks. So from a user interface standpoint, this is looking pretty good. Of course, there's no code, like it doesn't actually do anything. What I want the more button to do is to make balls that will start making squares. And what I want the clear button to do is to clear everything out. Okay? So we'll start coding that in the next video.